Jeskai Tokens deck, Thompson with this deck.
And last week I spoke of predicting an uptick in Reclamation stages because of Whip of Erebos and Jeskai Ascendancy being prevalent in the two top decks. Ross playing a full 3 in the main deck this weekend. That's quite a few of those.
Thompson going to start things off with a Sylvan Caryatid after a couple of green-black dual lands. Merriam with a Sandsep Citadel. Second land will be a Windswept Heath. He will sacrifice that. Get either a Forest or a Plains and a Caryatid of his own. So both players have the mana acceleration. Thompson's got the Courser of Krufix, however. The top card here is a Doomwake Giant. Does he have a third land is the question. It looks like he does with a Temple of Silence, so he will play that, put Doomwake to the bottom. Take a look at the top card now. It's a copy of Sandsep Citadel, and Gerry will pass the turn back. Doomwake Giant, very popular here for both players. Thompson with 4, Merriam with 3.
And Gerry's hand must be pretty flush with action if he's willing to put a Doomwake Giant on the bottom of his deck this early on. One of the better threats in these kind of mirror matches. Powerful on its own right, and a good answer to Hornet Queen, which is one of the trump cards.
Merriam does draw his card for the turn. He's got a land to play. It'll be a Forest. And now a Siege Rhino. So he will gain 3. He's up to 22. Thompson's going to go down to 18, and we will push it back Gerry's way. Forest, the top card of his deck. That comes into play immediately. Courser, Trigger. Gain a little life. Hornet Queen's now the top card. You saw Sandsep Citadel was the draw for the turn. Now here's Nylon of Blossoms. Trigger. Draw a card. It's a Hornet Queen. Top card of the deck now is Whip of Erebos, and Thompson will pass the turn back.
One copy of Eidolon of Blossoms here, and if Ross does not have a removal spell ready to go right now, this Eidolon can run away with the game.
And one thing we do know that Merriam has is a Siege Rhino. He's got 4 mana. He's going to play Whip of Erebos. He'll be attacking here for 4 and gaining 4 life. Thompson's going to go down to 15. Merriam's going to go up to 26. But that's not a removal spell, though there is a Temple of Silence. Maybe that can help him find one.
The game is rarely about damage racing, at least game 1 in the mirror match. It's about board position and card advantage, and right now Gerry's winning that battle.
Whip of Erebos the draw. Sandsep Citadel is on top. It's going to come into play now. Trigger the Courser. Thompson going to go up to 16. Sandsep Citadel will be the draw next turn, potentially. You do see Thompson with a Satyr Wayfinder. Looks like he's going to deploy that here in just a moment.
Would imagine there's no interest in drawing that land next turn. So this seems like a pretty good spot for Gerry to mill himself over, give himself a fresh draw step.
Thoughtseize, Whip, and Sylvan Caryatid are going to go into the bin. Siege Rhino's on top. Sandsep Citadel was added to the hand. The manipulation that this deck has and the ability to slowly gain card advantage through Courser and Wayfinder Eidolon of Blossoms along with Whip of Erebos. Very powerful.
Not just raw card count too, but the selection this deck generates is excellent.
You don't expect that from a green deck.
No.
There's the attack for 4 points of damage. Thompson's, of course, not going to be blocking that Siege Rhino, so he'll just pass the turn back after putting Merriam down to 22. Merriam will draw a card for the turn, but as you mentioned, it's not about the life totals, at least at this stage.
It can get to be about life totals when players get very low because of Siege Runner triggers, but in this sort of spot, even though Ross is ahead in the damage race, Gerry, I believe, is winning the game.
Merriam going to tap some mana here. So Satyr Wayfinder. We'll take a look at the top 4 cards. Doomwake Giant, a Windswept Heath, Llanowar Waste. Let's make it 2 of those. We'll get to select one of those lands. And we'll see which one Merriam opts to take. Looks like he's weighing Windswept Heath. And he is. So that'll be added to his hand. It's going to come into play. He'll sacrifice that, go down to 21 in the process.
I don't know if this is because he needs a second white source of mana or if he's just willing to thin out his deck. I guess a 3rd or 4th white source of mana here.
Yeah, he will get a Plains. So mana base is certainly online here for Merriam. See what he wants to do now that he does have 4 mana. He does have the ability to activate Whip of Erebos if he'd like. Bring back a Doomwake Giant.
The Windswept Heath here also might just be a concession to the Murderous Cuts in his deck. He just wants to have a little bit more action in his graveyard. He has a lot of stuff to remove, but you can never be too certain when you have a bunch of Murderous Cuts in your deck.
Hero's Downfall going to clear out the Rhino. Merriam going to play Reclamation Sage, take care of the Courser of Krufix. Oh, we'll just simply pass the turn back. Thompson's draw is a Siege Rhino. We all know that. No more Courser in play. But it has the potential for a pretty big turn here. And how you navigate on these later turns in the matchup is pretty complicated stuff.
Especially now, with Ross using the Reclamation Sage last turn, I think that's an indicator that he's setting up a Doomwave Giant plus another trigger, because the Eidolon is much more threatening than the Courser. So if he's willing to do that, I believe it means he has the ability to get back the Doomwave Giant and trigger with another enchantment, clearing out the Eidolon in the process.
You saw Courser come into play. That's going to trigger Eidolon of Blossoms. That allowed Thompson to draw a copy of Siege Rite. Now, the top card of his deck after that was a Temple of Silence, so that comes into play from the Courser. Scry here looks like it may leave Thoughtseize on top of the deck. So the ability for this green deck to get through itself so quickly is what makes it so impressive. Draw so many cards.
It's definitely been an R&D philosophy shift. You know, yes, in years past, this was just the jurisdiction of blue decks drawing this many cards, but now other colors get to do it too. Not divination style, but they give the other colors sources of card advantage, and you're seeing this on full display here.
Merriam will draw. We'll see what he can put together on this turn of the game again, because at this point, he does look to be behind. Again, he is winning the life total game, 21-17. He does have an Urborg to play. But Gerry currently looks to have the better board. And it's just built a larger advantage as here comes Reclamation Sage. Sylvan Caryatid is going to jump in front of that. Now here's a Hornet Queen. And trigger. 4 insects will come in.
Now the pressure is on Gerry. Does he have one of his 4 Doomwave Giants?
Yeah, he put one to the bottom. Many moons ago with a Temple.
Hornet Queen left unchecked is very hard for the other deck in the mirror match to beat game 1. It's part of the reason that players have gone to so many copies of Doomwave Giant. Sometimes you see Soul of Theros pop up in these lists for the same reason.
You saw that in Atlanta in the finals. It was a big game then.
And Gerry knows that he can't just play a Hornet Queen of his own right now, because Ross still has access to the Doomwave Giant in his graveyard.
7 mana. He will go with the Hornet Queen, however. Likely just knowing that that's going to die.
He may just have to weather the storm.
So he'll have 4 insects come in as well. And, you know, what this could be is just forcing Merriam's hand to get that Doomwave Giant and from his graveyard and have to commit 4 mana this turn. Could all be part of the plan there for Thompson. And we'll see what Merriam has to do on his turn. As him playing Hornet Queen first has definitely changed some things in this game.
Gerry's hand's still flush with action, and he's been holding a Whip of Erebos for a very long time as well. So I think that if he gets the opportunity to, he'll be pretty aggressive in trading. You know, try to get that Hornet Queen into the graveyard.
Decisions here for Merriam. This Abzan Reanimator Mirror is a very complicated one, as he's going to serve in here with Reclamation Sage.
And Gerry is going out of his way to make sure that card does not end up in the graveyard.
Yep. There's a Sylvan Caryatid. I'm just going to pass the turn back. We'll go back Thompson's way. We know his draw for the turn. It's Copy Hero's Downfall. Top card of the deck is a Courser of Crewface. Creatures in play on Thompson's side. You see he's got the Courser, Eidolon of Blossoms, Hornet Queen, a Satyr Wayfinder as well. He's going to lead up with a Thoughtseize now, however, and Merriam looks as though he's going to have a response. He's going to fire off his Hero's Downfall to take care of the Eidolon of Blossoms. And now a Murderous Cut as well. So able to clear up some of Thompson's things. Courser will die. That means the top card of the deck will be face down now, and the Thoughtseize will miss here as Merriam has no other cards in his hand.
So Ross at this point is very much all about his copy of Whip of Erebos. That goes away, he doesn't have a lot left. No cards in hand, a board that's not really equipped to attack. And Gerry with a lot of cards left over in his hand, mostly due to the Eidolon and the Courser.
Yeah, Merriam's side, you see the 2 copies of Sylvan Caryatid, the Hornet Queen and the 4 insects. Reclamation Sage that Thompson refuses to let die. Merriam really wants it in his graveyard. Satyr Wayfinder, and then the big one in Whip of Erebos. So boards are pretty cluttered up here. Hard to say who's in the lead right now.
Gerry has a couple big draws here. If he finds a Doomwake Giant, I think he's comfortably ahead. If he finds a Reclamation Sage, he's playing 2 in his own main deck for the Whip of Erebos. I think he's comfortably ahead. Even the way the board looks right now, he's okay-ish. The Doomwake in the graveyard, again, still very scary for Gerry. But if Ross makes any push, Gerry can put the Hornet Queen into the graveyard with a block, play the whip out of his hand, get it back. And I guess that's attractive enough for Gerry that he's willing to ship in an attack.
Well, here he comes. So Merriam wants to block here, if at all. Looks like Satyr Wayfinders are going to trade with each other. A little bit of damage dealt here for Thompson.
And Gerry knows that he's likely to get Doomwaked here, so he's willing to get in some attacks here because he can't hold back on defense altogether.
It's a whip activation, Satyr Wayfinder. We'll turn over a couple of cards here. Of course, you have Crewfix among them. Merriam will take his Temple. Thank you very much. A little scry action here. Top card to the bottom.
Pretty good news for Gerry that Wayfinder trigger was fairly anemic. Because the whip is unchecked right now, if Ross finds any of his other big cards, it's pretty bad. But Gerry avoided it.
So let's see how number 3 on our Season 4 leaderboard, and the player who's 100% headed to our Players' Championship, is going to attack this turn. It's with Reclamation Sage, Satyr Wayfinder, and 2 insect tokens. Some quick blocks here from Merriam. Excuse me, from Thompson on Merriam. Siege Rhino going to jump in front there. Couple of insects there. When the dust settles, some things will go away, but Reclamation Sage will stay in play. Most importantly, is Merriam is trying to get that to die, and Thompson will not let him. Of course, if Crew fixed the draw.
And as long as Gerry can keep his head above water through these whip activations, I think he's got a better late game at this point. Probably better draws in his deck overall.
Top card's Murderous Cut there. See that from the Courser. Siege Rhino there in Thompson's hand. He's been sandbagging a Whip of Erebos for some time now, but he'll play the Rhino first. He'll go up to 20. Merriam down to 23.
And I really like the discipline here of Gerry not doing anything with that Whip of Erebos in his hand. Willing to wait. Knows that there's a risk of the Reclamation Stage going into the graveyard. On Ross's side of the table. And right now the board is pretty stable for Gerry, so there's no reason to make a move.
Merriam just attacks with the Reclamation Sage. Sylvan Caryatid blocks it. Merriam goes up to 25. See, the life total is 25 to 20. As we are working our way deep in the late game now. Thompson going to play and activate Whip of Erebos finally. The question is, what is he getting back? All this just for a Satyr Wayfinder.
Well, this is step 1.
Yep. Turn over a couple of cards. Doomwake Giant among them. There's also an Utter End and a Siege Runner that are going to go to the graveyard. Or land going to be added to Thompson's hand.
Some pretty exciting options there. Having access to a Doomwake, very valuable for Gerry. I don't know if he wants to fire it off just yet because he doesn't want to put that Reclamation Sage in the graveyard. But if he can find an answer for Ross's whip, then it becomes very good.
And Thompson has 2 main deck Reclamation Sages of his own this weekend, so he has something to draw to. He had 1 last weekend when we were in Portland.
Alongside 2 copies in the main deck of Utter End, you saw 1 get flipped over there, but I believe still 1 lurking somewhere in Gerry's deck.
Windswept Teeth is the land that is put into play there for Thompson. And it looks like he's going to do some attacking here. With a whole bunch of stuff, in fact. He will get to gain a bunch of life here, as he does have Whip of Erebos in play. So 2 Siege Rhinos, along with the Hornet Queen, a Satyr Wayfinder, and 2 insect tokens coming into the red zone.
And keep in mind that the Siege Rhinos are really tough to block. if Ross puts just one Death Touch token in front, Gerry can use his Murderous Cut before damage. All the trample damage gets assigned to Ross. So if he's really concerned with getting these Siege Rhinos off the table, he needs to overblock, and that's exactly what you're seeing here. Not clear yet if Ross is single blocking each Rhino. It looks like he is. And that's the play you see there from Gerry. Taking care of the token, assigning all the trample damage to Ross.
Try to push some damage through. Get the life totals a little bit lower.
He's got a graveyard that's capable of going on the offensive.
Yeah. Well, now the dust does settle. A bunch of things are going to die. Now both players are going to have to get those whips moving. That looks to be the plan.
And now with Gerry with Doomweight Giant in his graveyard, Ross has to be a little careful about getting back to this Hornet Queen. The flip side of this is if Ross gets back, Gerry rather gets back to Doomweight Giant, then the Reclamation Sage goes to the graveyard, which they can then come back and blow up the whip.
So there's your attack with the Hornet Queen that's been whipped back. It's exiled now, along with the Reclamation Sage. Merriam looks to push his life total up to 22, while Thompson's at 31. But the trick is who can actually kill the other person's whip. And Thompson's refusal to let Reclamation Sage die is notable, and Merriam trying to get him to block it is not going to happen. Now here is Doomweight Giant. That's going to come in. It's going to kill Reclamation Sage. Here's a big attack.
Please make sure that you find your seat as soon as possible.
So see how Merriam wants to block here. He does have a removal spell to cast. Murderous Cut's going to take down Siege Rhino. Doomweight Giant's going to get in some points of damage here, and Thompson's going to gain some life, but Doomweight Giant's going to be exiled after this because it was brought back via whip.
And now the coast is clear for that Reclamation Sage out of Ross's graveyard to take care of the Whip of Erebos.
He's been waiting a long time to get that thing into the graveyard. He can't bring this back fast enough, so there is Reclamation Sage. Take care of the whip.
What's worth noting now is Ross's graveyard has no utility left. It is just a Siege Rhino and a Courser Crewfix. Those are the Siege Rhino especially. That's fine to get back. But there's no source of card advantage. There's nothing that really plays to the board. So the worst for the time being is over for Gerry as it relates to Ross's Whip of Erebos.
Rex Sage is gone for good. Thompson's draw. Caves of Koilos. Here's an attack for 3 in the air. Thompson's going to go to 41. Merriam's going to go down to 14. Perhaps that's why Thompson made the move when he did with the Doomweight Giant, knowing that Merriam has not much of anything in the graveyard, though he will activate, get back Siege Rhino. In we go. Going to be a huge life swing here. That's gone for good, which means that's the end of Merriam's turn. Back Thompson's way. He draws a copy of Siege Rhino in for 3.
And you're getting a pretty good demonstration. This is the first time you've watched this matchup of why it's about the board and the graveyard and not really life totals, because both these decks are flush with ways to gain life.
Hero's Downfall going to take care of the Siege Rhino. See, the life totals are fluctuating quite a bit. It looks like we stabilized at 15 to 33 for now. That's likely to change in just a moment, though. Let's make it 15 to 34. Activate the whip. Bring back the Courser. Take a look at the top card of the deck. Get the Satyr Wayfinder. Trigger from the Caves. Merriam going to go up to 16. In for 2. Merriam going to go up to 18. Thompson going to go down to 32.
And that Wayfinder is a really juicy draw there with a Whip of Erebos in play. A lot of big hits Ross can get here.
Can't cast it fast enough. And it comes. Trigger. Take a look at the top 4. Hornet Queen, Satyr Wayfinder, a Temple, and a Doomweight Giant. Those are all big. Temple is a nice land to find too, due to Scry.
That's about the best you could ask for if you're Ross.
4 mana, activate, or bring him back the whip. Whip's gonna bring back the Hornet Queen. In we go. Scry, right to the bottom. No interest in that card. We'll head back Thompson's way. Thompson with another land here in the mid game. I guess we can classify this actually as the late game.
Yeah, I guess when both players have 20 mana in play, we can.
Here's a whip activation. Doomweight Giant. Clear out that Hornet Queen token. In comes Merriam here with his creatures. Thompson's going to have to do some blocking now. What you see here is Thompson's inability to get Whip of Erebos off of the board. Certainly costing him now.
It looked like he had survived the worst of it, but that Wayfinder has just brought a second wave of bad news for Gerry. And now it's not enough for him to answer the whip. He's also got to answer the board. And with, I believe, his 5th consecutive land, things are looking grim.
Now, to be fair, his life total's quite high.
Yeah, that's the thing. He still has time.
Seder Wayfinder going to come back. Time to reload that graveyard, potentially. Doomwake, Hornet Queen did a good job. Reclamation Sage, too.
Now I feel like Gerry has to draw an answer for the whip this turn.
Yeah, it's got to be Rec Sage now.
He's not going to be able to survive another Hornet Queen, Reclamation Sage, Doomweight Giant wave.
Standard open players. Before we start
Nope.
rounds, I would quickly go over one
Better always pass the turn back.
Since yesterday, failure to reveal a one
Merriam will
card
draw.
is no longer a game cost by the warning.
Activate again.
Make sure that you reveal all board cards at the end of your
The question is what to get back. Well, he's unsure of himself. Let's take a look here first.
Yeah, this is Doomweight Giant check territory. Just make sure there aren't a bunch of them floating around.
Welcome to round 2. You have 50 minutes. You may begin.
Boop. What are we going to bring back? It's Hornet Queen. 4 more insects. Attack step. Hero's Downfall. Going to go after one of the insects, as Hornet Queen itself is actually going to be exiled after this, so no reason to fire away at that.
Signs that things have gotten bleak.
Yes. Thompson going to sacrifice his Windswept Teeth, get a land out of his deck. Doesn't want to draw another one. There's Forest.
Yeah, he's missed for a lot of turns in a row. It said something about the speed of this matchup, too, where Gerry has drawn nothing for 5 or 6 turns. Ross has had a pretty flush graveyard, and it still takes a long time to close out the game.
Got to play fast. Got to. Learn that firsthand in round number 1 of Portland. Got to draw.
And also round number 2. And yeah, another land
Hey,
for
come on. I
Gerry.
ain't drawing round 2.
Round 3?
True round 3.
Round 3.
Come on. Back off, buddy.
Sorry, I shouldn't have misrepresented what happened.
Carriati going to do a little bit of blocking here. A bunch of damage is going to come across. Looks like 6 in the air. And oddly enough, as there's a Sylvan Carriated.
Right on time.
Yeah, I mean, Utter End is better than nothing, I suppose. There's a Plains. There's an Utter End to take care of the whip. If he peels a Doomwake Giant,
Yep.
he can play. Or a whip to bring back his Doomwake Giant. See if Merriam draws. Looks like it was just a land. Get you. 6 in the air. Put you to 4. Land, pass. He actually has draws here. Yep. Just drew 2 more lands, and that's it. So Ross Merriam's going to win game number 1 here over Gerry Thompson in the Abzan Reanimator Mirrors. We turn our attention to the sideboards, where we will start with Thompson. And he's got 2 Ajani Mentor of Heroes, 2 Glare of Heresy, 2 Eidolon of Blossoms, a Temple of Silence, a Reclamation Sage, a Farika God of Affliction, 2 copies of Bile-Blight, 3 Drowning Sorrows, and a Thoughtseize. What do we like?
Really solid options here. I like the Farika, the Reclamation Sage, the 2 copies of Eidolon of the Blossoms, the 2 Glare of Heresies, the 2 Ajanis, and I think the Bile-Blights can come in as well. He's got great options here.
What do we see on the other side?
A Thoughtseize, a Hero's Downfall, 3 Read the Bones, a Whip the Air of Erebos, a Soul of Innistrad, 2 Enhostilities, a Glare of Heresy, a Reclamation Sage, and Utter End, 3 copies of Drowned Sorrow. I like the Reclamation Sage, the Utter End, the Glare of Heresy, the Soul of Innistrad, the additional Whip, and the 3 copies of Read the Bones. Again, very good sideboarding plans for both these players.
Both players will get ready for game number 2 here. We'll be underway in just a moment. You see, we're going to start this game probably around 29 or 28 minutes. So if Thompson wants to win this thing, he's going to have to move pretty quickly, though this matchup does take a little while. However, we will talk about the Open Series for next year, where we actually, you guys can't see it yet, but behind us, we have actually our first event of 2015 taking place.
Yeah, we got a 2-day Standard Open hanging out behind us right now, which we will be, if we get to later today, we will be covering, and we'll get to the elimination rounds of tomorrow.
But to start 2015 off outside of that event, we'll take a look at our calendar here, and we're going to start things off in wonderful Columbus, Ohio.
Yep. 2 Legacy Opens as well in January, as you see Philadelphia and Indianapolis, and then Columbus and Washington, D.C. Those are going to be standard. We move to February. The Open Series hits Houston for the first time, February 14th and 15th. That will be standard. Los Angeles the following weekend, standard. The first modern Open Series event will be held in Baltimore in the end of February. Grand Prix Miami, which will be standard. Make sure to be tuned into MagicGP.com for more information as we get closer to that event. Dallas the following weekend, and then we close out Season 1 with the Invitational in Richmond, which will be standard for the Open event and standard Legacy for the Invitational.
Looking forward to all of those shows. You're going to be a busy guy, as will I. Going to be watching a lot of matches at the beginning of next year as we do kick off the 2015 Open Series. Have had changes to the Open Series. If you guys have not seen those, definitely head over to StarCityGames.com to find out more about them, as our Opens are now 2-day, $20,000 events. First place, $5,000 open points given away. Of course, buys in the Open Series tournaments no longer given at Invitationals. So if you want to find out more changes about organized play here with Star City Games, definitely head over to StarCityGames.com to find out more about it. We're excited. We hope you guys are too.
We're going to be handing out a ton of money next year.
Yes, we are. I like money. Money's kind of sweet. These players have both won quite a bit of it this year, especially Merriam. He's really made a name for himself this year.
Yes, he's done quite well for himself in the Open Series. Has had some good Grand Prix finishes as well. Good finishes Invitationals. Really has committed himself to the game. Gerry still hindered a little bit by, when you work in R&D, which he did for a little while. When sets get released, you're not allowed to play in sanctioned events for a little while if you worked on that set. So his schedule is a little hit or miss right now, but soon he will be back full throttle.
Gerry electing to draw.
Oh, man, putting him.
I love it.
Love it.
Here's the Seder Wayfinder. Gonna turn over Reclamation Sage, Sansep Citadel, Llanowar Wasteland, a Hero's Downfall.
Makes sense in this matchup. What is the tempo worth?
Not very much.
It only matters as it relates to Planeswalkers. If you can protect your Planeswalker, it's much more powerful. That's likely to happen on the play, but I still like the decision to draw because none of these players are going anywhere for a real long time.
Seder Wayfinder here from Thompson. Windswept Teeth can be added to the grip, 2 coursers, and a carry added into the bin. In for 1. Quick trade. Citadel pass. Corsair Crew fix the draw. It's a Temple of Silence. Take a look at the top card here, Will Thompson. He's going to leave it on. Pass the turn back over to Merriam. Merriam with land number 4 and Siege Rhino number 1. He'll go up to 22. Thompson will go down to 16.
And Gerry had the option there of just firing off his Corsair last turn, but he knows, again, the matchup is about selection, it's about card advantage, and there's no rush to get any particular card into play.
He'll play a Heath, go down to 15, play a Rhino, he's going up to 18. We'll see what land he searches up. It's a Forest, pass the turn back. It's 18 all. Attack. Will Thompson block.
Couple cards that make blocking risky here. Abzan Charm and Doomweight Giant. But 4 damage is a lot to take.
Yeah,
even in this matchup, 4 is a lot.
If you're Merriam, this attack is basically a free roll.
Yeah.
Put them to the test. Thompson's thinking about it.
This is not a pleasant position to be in. It looks like he's just...
Looks like he may have blocked now. It's just going to utter end that, and then some trample damage will take place. Here's a Temple of Silence. Top card stays on top, pass the turn back. So Thompson goes down to 14. Doomweight Giant to draw.
And a lot of players there would have just had the instinct of just, all right, I'll utter end your Siege Rhino and attack you. Ross chose a better line because if Gerry says no blocks, Ross can use his mana in the second main phase to develop his board and then utter end it down the line.
Merriam attacking again. There's Doomweight Giant. Pass the turn back. Thompson draw. Copy of utter end. Merriam currently ahead on the board. A little behind on the life totals here, but he's got to be happy with his position. Thompson going to sacrifice his Windswept Heath. He's going down to 16. He'll search up a Forest.
And Gerry would like to set up his board here, but he might be far enough behind on the board that he has to just start getting some blockers into play, playing some removal spells.
That's what it looks like. Now, there is the potential for Merriam to just play kind of a tempo game here, which is you play a creature killed, attack you for 8. All of a sudden, you're facing lethal next turn. We'll see if he does have another removal spell or a card like Reclamation Sage to clear this thing out of the way.
Well, Reclamation Sage is the ideal tempo play here.
Ding, ding, ding. Get you for 8, put you to 8. Thompson will have to untap and draw a card. It's a Temple of Malady. First things first, take a look. Bottom shelf.
Feels like one of the rare draws where, being on the draw has really cost Gerry a lot. He's just got run out of here.
Yeah, and it's a little strange. You don't see that very often. There's Utter End going to take care of the Siege Rhino. He's going to go down to 2. Here's a Read the Bones. This is a great turn for Ross to take off scrying and drawing cards.
He has to respect the possibility of end hostility, so he doesn't want to just keep casting stuff, but you also don't want to waste all your mana. So Read the Bones is ideal here.
Plains, Caryatid, pass the turn back. Thompson draws Farika. An interesting one to find. It's a Courser, top card, a Johnny. Ugh, he's going to pack it up and pack it in. Ross Merriam going to win this match here over Gerry Thompson, 2-0. The Abzan Reanimator Mirror goes to Merriam, and he moves on to 8-3.
The rare beatdown draw, getting it done.
Yeah.
Especially because both these decks, if anything, slow down post-board. They're bringing in more removal spells. They're bringing in cards like Farika to play a long game, and Ross just beat him up. No other way to put it.
Yeah, in game 1, Gerry flooded a little bit, and then game 2, you just got ran out of the gym, chose to draw first, and it looks as though it may have backfired.
I like drawing in these kind of matchups